What's up, YouTube? This is your girl Megan. Welcome back to the Hood Astro Queen. To all of my returning subscribers. However, if this is your first time on my channel on today, be sure to hit that subscribe button, alright? Because you want to. Also, don't be scared to hit that notification bell now, because that will let you know whenever I come on here and make a brand new post. Alright? So, I thought it would be very fitting in light of this recent JayZ controversy to do a brief spot chart reading on him and just really, I saw a few aspects and a few things in his chart that correlated with the current situation that he's going through. Colin Kaepernick was blackballed from the NFL following him taking a knee during the national anthem to show, I guess you could say, solidarity with people who are affected by police brutality and a lot of the atrocities committed towards the disenfranchised communities. All right. So as a result, all hell broke loose. He garnered a lot of support, and amongst his supporters, JayZ was one of the loudest voices in the bunch. Everybody kind of took on this F the NFL mindset, despite a lot of people still watching football. The Super Bowl was in January? Hella motherfuckers was watching the Super Bowl, but that's neither here nor there, okay? So JayZ was one of, like I said, the loudest voices of this movement, and he went on to criticize people like Travis Scott, who performed during the halftime for the Super Bowl, and allegedly people like Jermaine Dupri, who was even offered a very similar deal that JayZ just recently took himself. And word on the curb is JayZ actually advised him against the deal for those very same reasons, right? So he was very anti-NFL until recently, where he has actually announced that he is doing some type of deal. The specifics of the deal, I'm not quite sure, but my perception of, or my understanding, is that he's going to be in charge of the Super Bowl performances from here on out, and perhaps maybe even part owner of a team. So yeah, he was shown mixing and mingling, rubbing shoulders with a lot of the NFL owners and the head honchos and big wigs. And of course, a lot of people were upset because they were wondering if you're friends with Colin Kaepernick, number one, and then also if you proclaimed and took such a heavy and opinionated stance against the NFL, why go into business with them? A lot of people are looking at him as a sellout and questioning his intentions, especially after the little press release that came out where he stated, "We are past kneeling at this point," is what he said. So obviously that ruffled some feathers because people were like, what does that mean? Oh, what does that mean? But then the other perspective is the people who actually support him and feel like he's going to be the person to change the system, quote unquote, from the inside out. That, okay, he knows what he's doing. He's JayZ. He has money. He got this. He's a businessman. He's a businessman first. What do you want from him? Let him do his business. You have those people. While I personally don't give a fuck about any of it, because I've always known JayZ to be an elitist camel. Okay, he's very much been a profit first, my business first type of individual. It just so happens that in America, Black people tend to worship celebrities, and we place them on a pedestal and we make them responsible for our social movements, which why I don't understand. Nor do I subscribe to the whole Black collectivism type of mindset, because, how many people have to show you time and time again, we are not a collective. We are not a collective unit. Everybody has their own motives, their own agenda that they're operating from, especially once you take into consideration classism and people's status, their social economic status. So, JayZ and I do not have the same vested interests. So if you really look towards JayZ to be some type of pillar for the Black community, quote unquote, you're fucked. But that's neither here nor there. A lot of people do care. So this is why I'm doing the reading on today. I looked at his chart and I found a few things actually that could correspond to the situation that's going on currently. Now, mind you, this is my second upload, okay? Earlier today, I made a first video in which I found out that I was using the wrong birth year. I normally go to astrocharts.com. They typically are pretty legit. However, they had the wrong year. They said he was born in 1970. I should have cross-checked my sources on the front end. My bad, all right? So JayZ was born December 4th, 1969 at approximately 12:30. We're going to use 12:30, and I feel like that's a pretty correct birth time based off of my findings in Brooklyn, New York. Now, a few things did change from my initial reading, but a lot of things didn't. So we're going to go ahead and get this underway. Okay, here we go. So Jigga Jigga Hova was born on December 4th, 1969 at 12:30 a.m. in Brooklyn, New York, making him a Sagittarius sun, Libra moon, Virgo rising. Now, as I stated in my first video, it's no surprise that he is a Virgo rising, as he strikes me as someone who is very analytical, very much intelligent, and logical. I personally do not know a stupid Virgo. So just as a rule of thumb, whenever I see someone with a Virgo placement, like that's rather personal, so we're talking sun, moon, or rising, even Mercury, I mean, they tend to be very smart, or at least come across as very cerebral, analytical, logical individuals. Okay, so there's that. With him being a Libra moon, Libra is also in his first house, and it deals with him, aside from being a Sagittarius, because Sag suns are naturally charismatic, especially in his third house. They're naturally charismatic, but this could present or create somebody who has a strong need to maintain a sense of pleasantry when dealing with other people. There is a need for balance, right? That Libra thing, balance, and to come off or to come across to others as rather agreeable. Libra is also one of the lesser known signs of the military, making Libra moons, especially when placed in the first house, very strategic. JayZ is all about his strategy, all about, making moves and trying to figure out what to do next. Libra is also the sign of counsel and mediation, which is something that's very important because JayZ actually plays this mediator role in like almost all of his dealings, and that's kind of how a lot of that's how he presents himself, and that's also how a lot of people kind of just, I guess, interpret him, especially when I hear people talking about or trying to give him the benefit of the doubt when it comes to him making these deals with people in high places. They're like, well, he's serving as like a liaison between the hip hop community and the elites of society. We're talking about billionaires with a B, okay? Other fellow billionaires with hella money, lots of capital, and the ability to make very important decisions. That Libra, that's that Libra theme right there. Libra is also one of the signs that encompass a strong sense of activism, okay? And this is kind of reinforced with his moon being conjoined to his Uranus, because Uranus co-rules Aquarius, and Aquarius is another one of those activism, humanitarianism type of signs. So this reinforces JayZ very much being plugged in to that network of, like I said, activism. Him being somebody that's tapped into the collective. Also, his moon being conjoined to Uranus in Libra can deal with his image or his reputation being destroyed by way of a very public business deal or a scandal and sudden upheaval surrounding business and his business dealings. Now, his moon and Uranus are opposing his Chiron in the 7th house of Aries, which I mentioned this in the first video as well. Chiron in the 7th house of Aries can bring about somebody who is naturally not only just willful, but rather self-serving in matters concerning relationships, and we're talking about like your, personal relationships, intimate relationships, but then also your business relationships. And this aspect could point towards or reinforce JayZ being under a lot of scrutiny by way of engaging in a business deal that was very, like I said, self-serving. And a lot of this is put into context by way of his Mars and Aquarius, which is placed in his fifth house. Okay, so Mars and Aquarius is typically a placement that benefits from others. It looks to work harder, or excuse me, work smarter, not harder. So individuals who have their Mars in Aquarius are naturally going to place themselves in situations where they can easily come up, okay, either on the backs of other people, or maybe they can network in some way. And a lot of people can view them as opportunists, all right? Mars in Aquarius, especially in his fifth house, it could also reinforce this theme of activism, or him being seen as like a pillar in the community, or somebody who's standing up, quote unquote, fighting for the right, because that's that Mars energy, fighting for the rights of others. However, Mars in Aquarius can be rather phony, and especially during times where there is a lot of emotionally charged stuff going on, which it's very interesting because it makes me think of that little press conference that JayZ had earlier today or whenever, when he was basically trying to explain his motive for closing this deal, but he did like a terrible job and people left with more questions than they had answers. So where he was like, yeah, I think we're past kneeling at this point, and blah, blah, blah. People were like, what the fuck? Like, everybody was so upset, and, he just seemed very disingenuous. That's very much Mars and Aquarius. It's not necessarily that they mean to be, because these people are very much logical and independent thinkers. They pride themselves on being even quote unquote free thinkers at times, but they tend to kind of go with whatever's going to give them either the most benefits, or going to put them in alignment with a better situation. And I mean, and that's not necessarily always a bad thing, but it can absolutely be seen as phony, like somebody who is void of passion. And Mars in Aquarius at its very worst can be just straight up disloyal. Okay, and so getting back to how his Mars is aspected, his Mars is actually squaring his Venus and Neptune and Scorpio. And funny thing about his Venus and Neptune, they're both, his Venus is at the 29th degree and his Neptune is at the 28th degree. And they're both in his third house of Scorpio, as stated before. Which, I mean, does point towards this situation as well, because it can deal with him just being, number one, it could deal with him undergoing lots of scandal surrounding his investments. That fifth house also does deal with investments. Him making a lot of money up front, a lot of unearned income, but it's predicated upon hidden intentions. And like I said, with that Aquarian or that Mars in Aquarius, people just view him as like, nigga, you're fake. You're fake. Another pitfall of Mars in Aquarius is using or having certain groups of people to help identify like you as a person. So in other words, and taking this back to JayZ, you could be somebody who allows either your friends, your family, or maybe even the social circles that you belong to or the movements that you participate in. You can let other people kind of identify who you are and where you stand on certain things. And I think in JayZ's case, this could absolutely be people painting him as this fucking pillar of social justice, right? However, this identity could be a false representation and in actuality not even really align with who this person is for real. And maybe they are aware of it and are being, I guess, deceptive. And maybe they're not. But this is another reason why Mars in Aquarius can come off as fake and phony. His Mars is forming a trine to his Jupiter, which is at the 27th degree of Libra, in his second house. So yeah, that, I mean, is reinforces him being a rather good businessman, and a lot of these investments paying off as far as from a money perspective, right? Or a material perspective. And he's also somebody who I feel like JayZ is involved in the occult, which might not be, neither here nor there, but, taking it back to his Venus at the 29th degree of Scorpio, making an almost exact conjunction with his Neptune. I feel like, and I mean, if you go back and watch my Beyonce is a Witch video, Beyonce and JayZ have been seen with, I forget her name, but she's a very popular, rather well-known witch in the entertainment industry. And yeah, I wouldn't even be surprised if he communicates with her every day, especially with Pisces in his 6th house. But, whatever. His Jupiter is forming a quincunx to that Chiron in his 7th house of Aries, which once again reinforces this theme of him being stuck in a limbo between him making decisions that are of his best interest versus decisions that are, going to benefit other people. His moon is forming a quincunx to his Saturn in the 8th house of Taurus. Funny thing about Saturn and Taurus is that it can produce, especially in the 8th house, it can produce somebody who either kind of takes on a lot of debt, like they can find themselves in a lot of debt, or they could act more of like a bank. These people can be hell bent on material or increasing their material income, or they can be quite materialistic in their mindset. These people can be very hell bent on accumulating more money, and particularly, because the 8th house does deal with other people's money. So they could manage other people's money, which is why I say they could act more like a bank, to where maybe they're lending other people money, or they're constantly in business deals. But there's going to be some type of karmic situation surrounding money and the way that they accumulate their wealth. Also, Taurus is the sign of the status quo. It's a rather conservative sign, and it's going to create issues where the more that you try to preserve or protect the status quo as somebody with your Saturn in the 8th house of Taurus, the harder it's going to be, the more scandal you can run across, or the more enemies, quite frankly, you can make, especially with that Libra moon. Libra does deal with open enemies and business dealings. Also, with him being a Mercury Sag as well, there is a tendency for JayZ to be rather idealistic. His Mercury is squaring his Pluto, which is at the 27th degree of Virgo. So technically, it's in his 1st house. His 1st and his 12th house also. And that could deal with him being, number one, he could be manipulative, okay? He could definitely be somebody who's very strategic in the way that he presents himself and in the things that he says. His asteroids Icarus, which deals with areas where you can overextend yourself, go too far, and as a result it can lead towards your downfall. Swindle, which is self-explanatory. It can definitely tell a lot about how someone conducts business depending on how it's aspected. And then his asteroid Lie, which is another self-explanatory asteroid, which obviously deals where someone is being, a liar. They're all conjoined with one another, with his Icarus at the 8th degree of Capricorn, his Swindle at the 9th degree of Capricorn, and his Lie at the 10th degree of Capricorn. So they're all in Capricorn and his 4th house, which is funny because in the first video, I'm kind of tired now, but I went on and on about Capricorn and how, unlike Aquarius, which I associate with socialism or egalitarian point of view, capitalism is very much so associated with that Capricorn energy, because Capricorn does deal with hierarchies. It deals with business where you're making money first, and Capricorn likes to be at the very top of the hierarchy, so where you have the people at the top making money and then the people at the bottom getting crumbs or whatever the fuck they get, right? So in other words, this placement in JayZ's chart can absolutely support the fact that this is very much the way his mind operates, okay? Especially in that 4th house, that he's very much, it reinforces him being a very business-minded individual, but it can point towards him being a little bit too greedy, especially with his Icarus and Capricorn, him being the type of person to where his desire for increasing his business acumen kind of like he oversteps that boundary at times and is almost too into that bag to the point where he can actually shoot himself in the foot in that respect. He can be the type of person who naturally is going to be ruthless. That's another manifestation of these placements. Somebody who is ruthless in the way that they go about handling business, and it's all in the name of like I said, increasing their business acquisition. But then also, Capricorn is also about status and reputation and like securing that spot, securing, what they feel that they deserve. And with his Swindle and Icarus both squaring his moon, it just reinforces it having a negative impact on his reputation, it having a negative impact on his business dealings. And once again, it reinforces this theme of him even possibly creating enemies in the process. Another example of a business dealing gone wrong that I can think of is with his former partner or former CEO of Def Jam. Was it Def Jam? Not Def Jam. Rockefeller Records. Damon Dash. Okay, since they've parted ways, people kind of look at Damon Dash as like this crazy, kooky person. Granted, he is kind of like hot-tempered and, very unpredictable. But, he was one of the first people to tell the world really that JayZ moved in a rather peculiar type of way as it pertained to business. Now, was it very profitable for JayZ financially? Was he very successful? Yes. But ultimately, whatever transpired between the two, Damon Dash got the short end of the stick. And Damon is a Taurus sun, which makes his sun fall in JayZ's 8th house. That 8th house does deal with love and hate relationships, so it's no wonder why they fell apart the way that they did. And it could even point towards Damon owing like JayZ some money, or JayZ lending him money at a certain point in time, or Dame even being indebted to JayZ at a certain point. And it was just a karmic business partnership that was bound to hit a wall at some point, especially with Capricorn on the 4th house. So Capricorn being governed by Saturn, right? That whole 8th house thing of like transformations, and like JayZ just is naturally the type of person who wants to expand his empire, and he's very willful as it pertains to his business and what he wants for himself. So what can you say? Now, with him being a Pisces North Node, okay, his North Node being in his 6th house, JayZ does have a karmic responsibility to serve other people. And we can argue, how much we feel like he's living up to that. And a lot of that Pisces North Node does also deal with him being like a musician. So, in a lot of respects, I feel like he is. Okay. And don't get me wrong, he does have lots of indicators of, like I said, him being very much socially focused, being a humanitarian or an activist of sorts, but I just would not, just view him as a human, really. He's just naturally going to be predisposed to putting his best interest first. Okay? So, yeah. That's that on that. Y'all drop down in the comment section below. Let me know what you thought of this reading. Let me know if I missed anything or what your interpretation on certain aspects are. Also, in the future, I am going to try to find a app that allows me, or a program or a software or whatever, that allows me to share these charts of these celebrities in real time as I'm analyzing them. And it'll make it easier, more entertaining for you guys, I'm aware. So, yeah, that's coming down the pipeline. But for now, like I said, feel free to comment in the comment section and give me feedback. Let me know what you think. What are your thoughts? And blase, squaze, all that good jazz. So, until next time, make sure you practice unconditional self-love so that you can love others. And as always, honey, I'll holla.